got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. Welcome everyone to my comic book review for this week on April 2014. I know I am way late with this. Been busy the past few days, really busy, but I finally found the time to do this review, and I know I'm really behind on my other channels and the other people I work with, and I apologize for that. But I got a big pile of books here, and I'm going to do things a little differently this time when it comes to the Marvel books. But DC, I'm going to fly through the DC books and then talk about the Marvel books. Because with DC, we're high on the bats, and with Marvel, we have an X-Men overload. So, let me go ahead and get all the DC books ready to go. We're going to start off with Batman, number 30. The next part of Zero Year, I just find this so funny. The cover says Zero Year, Final Act. Yet this is part one of a multi-parter. You would think when the cover says Final Act, then that's it. This is the last part. Once this is it, it's done. We're done with this. Okay, this is interesting to say the least. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, they're doing a good job with what they're told to do here, with the story that they're told to present. However, with that being said, we are finally, and I mean finally, we finally get what makes this event called Zero Year. We finally get the meaning behind the title Zero Year. After how many months of pushing out this bullshit? We finally get the meaning behind the title of the story. And once we finally see what the meaning is, I'm like, eh? The Riddler looks godly powerful in this issue. There's no denying that. But I'm sorry. Continuing to take steps backward when you should be progressing forward with this character, not to mention how much DC whores Batman out, this is getting ridiculous. To be honest, I don't know why I'm still collecting this series. Maybe I'm a completist. Maybe I'm that much of a collector when it comes to Batman. Yet I don't buy every Batman title on the shelf. But what I can say for certainty, out of all the Batman titles that I read, out of all of them that I currently read, it's funny yet sad that the main Batman title is the weakest one of the bunch. It is really sad. But overall, this particular issue was okay. Just okay. I just don't get it. Like, why are you giving us cliffhangers, and why are you giving us plot twists that suggest that Batman may fail when we know he's not gonna fail? Because this took place several years ago, timeline-wise. It's like Batman's around now, so how are we supposed to believe that he fails back then? Apparently, something's going to happen, and everything's going to be on the up and up because of where we are now. Doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. I just don't get it. This book overall was just okay. Moving on to Batman and Wonder Woman, number 30. The hunt for Robin continues. And I gotta say, the hunt for Robin. This really should be called the chase for Robin. Because Batman already knows where Robin is. He's in the clutches. his body and his mother's body are in the custody of Ra's al Ghul. So he knows where Robin is. So when this doesn't seem like much of a hunt, but more of a chase to get his son back and everything. And I gotta open this up for just a second here. I'm gonna open this up for this review, and I'll close it back up when the review is done. I open this up, and here's the first thing I see. Who draws the Amazons in here? Is it Patrick Gleason or Rob fucking Liefeld? Look at this! I understand the Amazons are supposed to be like, you know, muscular, very strong, and very athletic women. I get that, but god damn! Really? This Amazon got Liefelded badly. That was horrible to look at. The Amazons just look ridiculously bad in this book. Look, no offense, Mr. Gleason, but the artwork in this issue sucks. It really sucks. I'm not trying to sound like a misogynistic pig or anything like that, but, you know, I know Amazons are supposed to have a very strong presence and everything, but Jesus. But anyway, the chase for Robin continues, and of course Ra's al Ghul gets away, therefore further dragging this story out. But all in all, the dynamic relationship between Bruce and Diana in here is played pretty well in here, and the action in here was pretty good, but overall I'd say this was a good read, just not great. Moving on to Batwoman number 30, Madhouse. This issue made Batwoman look pretty strong and made her look pretty confident in the middle of a fight, because she's taken on released Arkham inmates in the Madhouse, and she's actually holding her own in here. And, you know, Wolf Spider is like one of those arrogant yet cocky kind of cowardly villains. It's like, yeah, he can talk a good talk, but when you confront him, he'll fight dirty and then find a way to hightail it out. That's the gist I got of the character in this particular issue. There's some very personal, dramatic shit going on with Maggie. I'm not going to spoil what that is, because I think it's going to add to the storytelling later on down the line. When I'm all for that, progressing the emotional storytelling more. I am really for that. You know, Batwoman's trying to further solve what's going on in this mystery. Why is this particular artist's paintings getting stolen? And she figured out both her, and I like the way this issue ends with her and Wolf Spider simultaneously figuring out the next spot on the heist. Very, very nicely done. This wasn't the strongest issue of the series by far, but for what I got, I liked it. I was impressed. Not bad, just not perfect. Moving on to Harley Quinn number 5, The Doctor Is In. This was just as fun as the rest of the issues were, but this wasn't as fun as I thought it would be. You know, there's a lot of one-liners in here, and yes, there is some bathroom humor in here, and I'm like, oh, God. But this was just fun. You know, seeing Harley being crazy, being nutso, and being silly. Yes, she's also a killer. And there's a... God, I can't believe I'm even going to say this. This is going to sound really weird, okay? But just hear me out. There's a death scene in here that was actually kind of funny. I never thought in the 20 plus years that I've been reading comic books. I've been reading comic books for damn well over 25 years. And I don't think I've ever said the words funny death scene before. I don't think I have, and we see it in here. There is a death scene in this book that actually made me kind of chuckle a little bit. And I'm chuckling now just thinking about it. But seeing Harley and Cyborg, you know, doing what they're doing in here, it's just hilarious. And a ridiculous cliffhanger at the end of the issue in which the writers just deliberately jab at you saying, nah, don't worry about her, she'll be fine in the next issue. This was fun. I'll admit it, I'll admit I was expecting it to be a little more fun than it actually was, but I loved it. I loved it nonetheless. It was a fun read, and still this series is a solid reminder that sometimes comic books just need to be fun. Next up, Green Lantern New Guardians number 30. God Killers triumphant? Not necessarily. This was really good. We got Zahal, the Tamaranian goddess, in here, getting stalked and getting hounded by these God Killers. And there's a big act in here. There's something that happens in here that causes Zahal to just go completely nuts. I mean, she just goes ballistic to the point where you're thinking supernova level shit. And Kyle and Carol come up with a way to try and solve this dilemma, yet they're kind of second guessing themselves. It's like, you know what we might have to do here, but there's gonna be a possible double-edged sword that could affect Kyle, and they're willing to take a risk, and I like that. I like that Kyle is willing to risk his health and risk his own safety to be the hero. Yes, that is basically done to death, but it works for Kyle in here, considering what kind of powers he has and what he feels he has to do. A lot of emotional shit in here. Very, very well done. The God Killers, I'm not gonna spoil what happens to them, nor am I gonna spoil how the issue ends, but this was much better than I thought it was gonna be. I enjoyed this. This was a really solid read for this series. Very, very impressed. We're gonna end DC with Red Hood and the Outlaws number 30. Oh my God, my patience is wearing thin on this series. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Starfire is literally the only reason why I'm sticking with this series. Starfire was one of my first superheroes as a child. Way back in the old 1980s. She was one of the first superheroes I ever saw in a comic book. I knew who she was before I knew who Wonder Woman was. And Starfire does do some nice stuff in here, I will say that. But the rest of this book just kind of, You know, look, the people who worked on this issue, they tried their best to make Roy Harper Arsenal. They tried to make him look like the underdog hero in here and everything, but I just can't take him seriously with that fucking trucker cap on. It looks so out of place for this kind of a character. And I've said this a million times, and I don't have a fucking problem with saying it again. Arsenal in this series looks like a character that was plucked out of a 1990s comic book and crammed in here just to piss us off. And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, DC probably did that on purpose just to piss people off, just to piss the readers off. That's the wrong fucking thing to do in a comic book business. The objective is to sell these books and make money. If you deliberately piss your readers off, they don't buy your product and you lose fucking money. There's my argument to people who think that DC does this shit deliberately. Why would they try to deliberately piss off their fan base? It's only going to end up in them losing profit. This book was just blah, but the cliffhanger saved it from being damn near a zero. This was blah with a nice cliffhanger. if I didn't get the cliffhanger that I got in this issue, this probably would have got a 1. But I'm being nice because the cliffhanger got my attention. We're moving on to Marvel. We're starting with Ms. Marvel, number 3. I'm going to stick with this series, but this issue didn't really do that much for me. I mean, it's just more of learning of Kamala's culture and how she grows up and how she's raised and everything, with very little focus on her. There is some focus in here on how she's learning to control her powers in here and everything, but there's hardly any focus on that at all. It's just more of us learning how she lives. And I get that. This series is still in its infancy, but I just didn't really feel anything in this issue until the very end of the book. Don't get me wrong, the writing was good. The artwork, it's hit or miss for me. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't be me if I wasn't honest. The artwork in here, in some parts, looked really cartoony and looked really kind of, But in some parts, the artwork worked. But, like I said, overall, I didn't really feel anything until the very end of the book, and that's a problem. Marvel, you need to spruce it up on this series just a little bit more than what you're doing right now. The first 2 issues were really good. This one fell a little flat, just a little flat for me, but it was a decent read for what it was. And then the ending, I'm like, okay, okay, let's see where you go from here. That's pretty much all I got to say about that book. All right, now for the X-Men Overload. We're going to start with Amazing X-Men number 6. Oh my God, this was good. Jason Aaron, thank you. This was really good. To see Nightcrawler dealing with his personal issues. The fact that, yes, he was brought back to the land of the living. He is back. He is alive again. But it cost him his soul. And if he should ever die again, then that's it. He's done. He can never return to the afterlife. He can never go back to heaven. So where do you think he's going to end up should he die again? Kurt's in deep shit, but at least he's able to live and everything. Him and the other X-Men are trying to celebrate him being back, and Mystique catches up with him because she just had to know. She heard about him being back, and she just had to know for sure. And then they talk about Azazel, and he's back too. And there is a bit of a family reunion with Mystique and Azazel. And it leads into a twist that I was kind of surprised to see, but it could lead to some really, really good storytelling for this particular series in the future. To see Kurt deal with all this personal family shit, yet still have the time to make time for his friends and his, fellow X-Men. And there was also some really awkward moments in here for Kurt concerning the X-Men, primarily with Racer X, a.k.a. Dick Summers, a.k.a. current Cyclops. But I loved the way this book ends. The way it should have ended, the way it needed to end, with Wolverine and Nightcrawler, the 2 best buddies that they once were, back together, being good chums, and just sharing a moment together, whether they're drunk or sober. Nice. Very nicely done. Moving on to Uncanny X-Men, number 20. Racer X, Dick Summers, decides to fight back against S.H.I.E.L.D. in his own way. He, launches a psychic attack against Maria Hill, and he uses the Cuckoos to do it. And he finds out some stuff about S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Sentinels and everything, and he finds out that Maria Hill knows nothing about these Sentinels. He also awkwardly finds out that Maria Hill is also attracted to Dick Summers, which is kind of awkward. But long story short, Dick Summers finds out something about these Sentinels, and he finds out something about Cerebro. Now, I'm not going to spoil everything, but he goes to he pays a certain old friend a visit, and then the issue ends kind of weirdly with Dick Summers with his powers just going haywire, thus reinforcing my opinion that he shouldn't be leading any fucking team when he can't even control his own powers. So, on the flip side, this issue didn't make him look so much like a villain that much anymore, but that's only this particular issue. Who knows what's going to happen later on down the line. But this was okay. A nice read, very well done. I was just kind of about the cliffhanger. You know, it is what it is. Wolverine and the X-Men #3. This was a Quentin Quire heavy issue. Very Quentin Quire heavy concerning Phoenix Industries and all that shit. This was good. This was a nice read for big time Quentin Quire fans. Very, very nicely done. And that's pretty much all I got to say. I mean, there's really nothing more to say about this other than it was a really good read and a nice addition to your collection, especially if you like Quentin Quire. Make some revelations. They tell Quentin about, hey, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I mean, we've seen storytelling like this primarily with the X-Men a dozen times, millions of times. You know, I got really nothing really to say. I mean, it wasn't perfect, and then again, it was pretty good. You know, just some weird moments in here, especially with the walking around in Quire's mind and everything. It's just, it is what it is. It was good. And then X-Men #13. I love that cover. That cover is just so damn cool. Sometimes simple works. This was actually pretty nicely done. You know, and a proper representation on the cover. Yes, Jubilee and Shogo, her new adopted son, is part of the main focus of the story. And there's also some other stuff going on with, you know, with Psylocke, with Monet, and with Rachel. And I'm not going to spoil, but their parts in this book were well done too. But Jubilee is in deep shit. She is in deep shit because she finds out in a very unique way that there's a certain someone connected to this baby who's coming for her. And this person is making some very, very realistic, real threats. Very nicely done. Very well done. I'm not going to hardly say anything else. This was a great read. Not perfect, but great. Now, I saved this for last on purpose. So I want to talk about this. The Superior Spider-Man, issue #31, the series finale. The conclusion to Goblin Nation. Dan Slott and Christos Gage worked the plot. They worked the story with the writing. Giuseppe Camuncoli did the artwork, which the artwork in here was great. However, I got way too excited for this. I got way too anxious to find out how this story was going to conclude. This was disappointing. First of all, $5.99. Really, Marvel? How fucking greedy are you, really? Then we get to the story itself. I got really excited for this because for several reasons. One, we were finally getting Peter Parker back. Okay? 2, I was excited to see. I came under the impression that this was, and it was, the beginning of Peter trying to explain himself as to, you know, why is Spider-Man now acting so differently now, and trying to re-explain what's been going on. Him finding out what's been going on while he's been gone, and everything. But the thing I was most excited for was Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, one-on-one with Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, one more time. I was ready for this. And I read this book, and oh my God, just like in New Ways to Die years ago, the Goblin looked so much like a fucking chump in this issue. All this build up to how godly he was, to how overwhelmingly powerful he really was, and we get here. I did like how Norman Osborn, how the Goblin was able to figure out that Ock is gone and the one true Spider-Man is indeed back. I did like that. He was able to recognize the true Spider-Man once he quipped. And I did like that moment. But the rest, this fight looked so one-sided in Spider-Man's favor. I was expecting more action. I was expecting more drama out of this fight. But it fell flat. It is Norman Osborn, sort of. It turns out, spoiler alert, the Green Goblin is Norman Osborn, but he had facial reconstructive surgery to make him, to get rid of the very recognizable face he once had, and he was posing as somebody else. Now, I'm not going to spoil who he poses as, but man, the Goblin just looked like a chump in this book. I was expecting so much more action, so much more dramatic storytelling in this fight. Now, maybe some of y'all liked this fight, and I get that, and I'm fine with that. But the thing is, it's the most iconic rivalry in Spider-Man comic books. And it's arguably the most iconic rivalry in all of Marvel Comics. Spider-Man, the Green Goblin. It's synonymous with feuds like, I'm saying this again, Batman versus the Joker, Superman versus Lex Luthor, Captain America versus Red Skull. All these iconic rivalries in the comic books. You know, the Spider versus the Fly. Hell, if you want to use wrestling terms again, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon. Or hell, The Rock versus Triple H. Or we can go a step further. You know, The Undertaker versus a Mick Foley from back in the day. A Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. And you know, now you can also compare it to other rivalries, maybe like, you know, a Wolverine versus Sabretooth. You know, it's just one of those iconic rivalries that always brings you back and always hooks you in. And then we got what we got in here, and I'm like, ugh. It could have been so much better. I didn't like how the Goblin was treated in here. I did like the touch of, you know, Ock's, Superior Spider-Man's love interest. Such a dramatic moment, and I hope this is not the last we see of her, because we still need to do some more storytelling with this character. I hated what they did with Mary Jane and Carly Cooper in here. I hated it, because these are two very strong and very identifiable supporting characters in the Spider-Man mythos. And they've dealt with shit like this before. Well, at least Mary Jane has. And to say, I'm done, and for Mary Jane to say, I'm done with helping you out, Peter. You're on your own. Basically abandoning him. when he probably needs her or needs a friend more than anything right now. It just makes the character of Mary Jane look weak, makes her look cowardly, and makes her look like a fucking quitter. It really does. It cheapens her fucking character, and this pisses me off. She went through Spider Island with him. Look at all the shit that Mary Jane has dealt with just being a part of Peter Parker's life. The Spider Slayers, Alistair Smythe, Jonathan Caesar, the Chameleon. You know, the fucking Clone Saga, for Christ's sake. Look at all this shit that she's been through. And now, all of a sudden, she just can't handle it no more. I guess you could argue the fact that she has probably reached her boiling point. She's probably reached her breaking point, and she's finally done. She's finally come to the conclusion that she's done. But here's the argument I have. How long is this decision of hers going to last? Because we know it won't. She says she's leaving. She can't deal with it anymore. But us readers already know at some point or another, she's gonna fucking come back. This Mary Jane walking out on Peter, we've seen this before more than once. Why the fuck are we supposed to believe it's gonna be permanent now? I mean, think about it. MJ has walked out on Peter before, more than once. So why the fuck should we believe it's permanent? Why should we fucking believe it? Because it's not permanent. Which cheapens this moment. Which makes this character look weak. However, I did like the thing between Spidey and J. Jonah Jameson. I did like that. And that was probably the best part of the whole book. And that's a damn shame. $6 for this. So disappointed. The Goblin story fell flat. I wanted more action. I wanted more in-fight action. I wanted more dramatic storytelling, because these two are blood rivals. The most iconic rivalry in the history of Spider-Man comic books, arguably. Some people might say Spidey and Venom. I get that. But for me, it's always been Spidey and the Goblin. It's always been that way. He fucking killed Gwen Stacy, remember that? And the shit with Mary Jane just fucking insulted me as a comic book reader. And to me, the best part of the book was the fucking third act that probably people just glanced over. Give me a fucking break. I'm all for Peter being back, but this book just had maybe 2 or 3 decent moments, but overall the book was flat. Well, I've shot my mouth off long enough. I want to thank y'all for watching. Please subscribe to this channel. Please subscribe to my other channel, Blugoblin X. My girlfriend and I, we got Arkham Asylum Studio still going. Don't forget everybody at Dark Avenger Inc. Plus. My bro, TheMtVernonKid, Mark and Chloe at Fast Stack of Comics. My old buddies, Deadpoolzilla and Brandon Hex. Thanks for watching, everybody, and until next time, I'll see y'all later.